Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. We have lots more episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today, I'm delighted to welcome special guest, Greg Bennick. Greg is a keynote speaker, a thought leader, and an author from Seattle, Washington, who brings teams together by reminding them that they matter and that the work they do is meaningful. He does this with authenticity. And he has a fantastic promo video at his website, which is gregbennick.com, GregBennick.com. So, Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Gosh, with all that information, I think we're done, right? Do we need to say anything else? That was wonderful. Thank you for that intro.
Fantastic. Well, that's it, basically. We just smile at the camera.
That's right. We're done.
And it's all good. Fantastic. So, thank you very much for coming on the show. I was just saying to you before we started recording that you're just so easy to talk to.
I'm so glad.
I could almost forget to start recording because it's just really nice. This thing, it says he does this with authenticity. I mean, everybody always wants to do things with authenticity, don't they? And probably everyone's got that somewhere in their marketing. What's your version of what that means to you?
You know, I was having a conversation the other day with a good friend of mine, and I'll name him by name. His name's Dan Trometer. He's a keynote speaker. He's from Canada. He's wonderful and a very dear friend. And we were talking about authenticity and branding and the way we present ourselves. And Dan said something that really just threw me, and it was wonderful. He said, the goal is not to rebrand yourself if you're working on your business. He said, the goal is to debrand yourself. And what I loved about that is that it's so true. When you were giving the intro just now that I admittedly wrote, I mean, those are things that I say and use to describe myself. When you got to thought leader, I almost wanted to say, you know what? I've heard that so much recently that people are thought leaders. And I thought, I'm a thought leader of my own thoughts. That's the goal, right? And I wish there was a way to specify, not that Greg Bennick is a thought leader, you need to listen to him like a guru, but rather Greg Bennick has figured out ways to refine and distill the chatter of the world so that his thoughts are leading himself more often than they used to, if that makes sense, rather than everyone else's thoughts leading me. And I thought, that's the type of thought leader I really am. Sure, I come up with some ideas and I share them from the stage, but the distilling and the focusing and the stripping away of the societal messaging and the spectacle, that's something that I actively do. That's a debranding, not a rebranding, right?
Yeah.
That's a push towards authenticity, not towards buzzwords, if that makes sense. So the authenticity that I pursue is that debranding, like my friend Dan talked about. I really like that idea. And I think that's the pursuit, to make sure that the things I do are genuine and real to me. That's the authenticity piece.
Amazing. Oh dear. Well, I've just created a whole new modality with a name and a website, which is completely branded.
In the last 2 minutes. Oh, I thought you meant in the last 2 minutes you've been working on this.
No, in the last, months. Yeah. So part of me is going, oh God. But you're not saying don't do that, are you?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I mean, in fact, like I'll keep my website. I think I'll tweak the wording from time to time, and debrand from time to time. I think it's really wonderful. I mean, the what we're talking about today is, the truthfulness within us, and transcendence necessarily suggests we're always going to be trying to rise above something. And I think that it's very easy to say, Greg Bennick is a thought, and you can almost hear that voice as those words are said, not the ones you used. But how do we get it to the point where my intro is, Greg Bennick is, and it's said as casually and received as casually as conversation with a friend? That's the debranding. So we could always be working on that. I think it's a work in progress, in one of those two words.
Yes, I completely 100% agree. But of course, there's that whole thing as well, which is you can't really sum up the experience of being with a person in a few words, can you? You have to actually experience the resonance, the energy between you to actually get the experience. And then you probably can't describe it.
That's right. I mean, I'll get done with this conversation. And to some people today, when they ask what I did today, I'll say, I did a podcast interview. So, hello, podcast interview. That's you. Then to other people, I'll say, I had this wonderful conversation with my new friend and blah, 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 and this and that and the other thing. And the entire experience will be perceived differently based on how I describe it. And yeah, this is, hopefully, I think it is already more than a podcast interview, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Because you were talking before about the typical marketing podcast interview, and I think I got a vague idea what you mean by that, where there's sort of do you want to say what that is? What that
sure.
is?
It's painful. That's what it is. The typical marketing podcast interview is painful because what happens is, for me as a speaker, as a keynote speaker, I'm selling something that most people don't necessarily need. And what I mean is this. I used to spend a lot of time with a hairdresser, a hairstylist, and I would explain to her that if she took 100 business cards and went to 100 people with hair, I'm probably not in the running, and said, I can do your hair better, and gave out 100 business cards, she'd get probably 10 people, 20 people to email saying, please let me know, maybe even 30 people. If I took 100 business cards that said I'm a keynote speaker and an author, and I, present for corporate and association events worldwide, and I walked up to 100 people with that card, 100 people would probably go, huh? Or, yeah, I guess I could give this to my boss. Or, yeah, I saw a keynote speaker once. No one's needing that. No one's waking up in the morning, except for meeting planners and specific people. The point is, oftentimes keynote speakers approach podcasts as if every single one is a marketing opportunity to get them a keynote presentation. And once I stopped doing that, I had much better conversations in situations like this one, because this isn't a marketing experience. It's a chance to connect and share ideas. And I wish we all did more of that without the intentionality of something coming from it as a result, right? So typical marketing keynotes are painful because the questions are always the same. I end up giving similar answers. The expectation is that every viewer is just sitting there with a checkbook and they can't wait to write my name on that check. It's utterly ridiculous. So I'm much happier just to have a conversation and connect with your listeners and with you.
Fantastic. Good. Well, I agree 100%. And I've been a guest on shows a few times as well. And sometimes I've been asked the sort of questions that are sort of inviting that. And I always sort of try and sort of kind of give an answer that's not the one they think they're
Right.
going to get. Because otherwise, as you say, it's so tedious. It's much more interesting to... So a lot of what you're saying then about authenticity is about not necessarily going into the mold that everyone's expecting, not necessarily going into the mold that is designed to get a particular result. And I love the thing you said about the thought leader of that you're hearing all of these thoughts and playing around with ideas and so forth with the intention that you find a way to have the sorts of thoughts yourself that will lead you to where you want to go. Now, I've never heard anyone describe it exactly like that before. I thought that was fascinating.
I'm glad. I mean, I really, to be completely honest, I think about this stuff all the time, and it's always a work that is ongoing. I I was influenced, and I speak from the stage about the Situationist Internationale, who were a group of authors in France in the late 1960s. And there was a man named Guy Debord, and Debord wrote a book called Society of the Spectacle. And this is an influential book on me. And Society of the Spectacle is a difficult book to read. It's intentionally difficult. Debord wrote it to confuse his readers. That was part of the deal. That was part of the aesthetic. So if somebody picks it up and reads it, it reads like nonsense. And at times it is. But there's a core message in it. And that is that the world consists of spectacle all around us at all times. And the spectacle is designed to attract our attention and to make us feel as though something is happening beyond the pale of our existence. So, for example, I watch people having adventures. I watch people falling in love. I see this in the tabloids, on movie screens, on the internet. I mean, they were writing pre-internet, but they would be horrified at the spectacle of today. The point is, I end up living life at arm's length. I'm not falling in love because I'm satiated by those I see falling in love. I'm not having adventures because I'm completely satisfied by the fact that Tom Cruise is having incredible adventures, or Alex Honnold the other day climbing to the top of this tall building as the world watched. I don't need to do that. I can just passively watch it. And his contention was, let us engage with life. Let us engage with life. Well, to do that requires a stripping away of the spectacle and a recognition that all is spectacle. I would hope that viewers and watchers of this podcast uh, live their own lives based on what you and I are talking about and aren't just satiated by the spectacle that is this podcast. But I think that in the midst of social media and various sorts of media that come at us from every angle in every moment to distract us, empty our wallets, and make us feel terrible about ourselves, that we strip away those messages as much as possible and remember the voice, for example, that's in our heads when all the lights are off and we're staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night contemplating our lives. Those are truthful moments. Like, wow, I really wish I got a dog. I should have been a professional dressage artist, whatever it might be, right? Performer, rider, whatever it might be. Those are the lessons we need to listen to, and we end up ignoring them or forgetting about them because we get so swept up in the spectacle throughout the day and distracted by it. So authenticity to me and that stripping away is about continually remembering that. It's kind of like if you're working out or you're trying to get in shape, every single time you say, I guess it's just one pizza. Those are the choices in moments that lead you to not where you want to be, if that makes sense. So I'm continually trying to diminish the influence of the spectacle in my thinking.
Yeah, amazing. And something I think is that one of the roles of the spectacle is to fill in the spaces where if we let those spaces be there, we might be uncomfortable. I recently did a thing where I sort of watched a lot of TV one day, and I noticed it seemed to fill all the spaces and the cracks and the crannies in me. Everything was insulated.
Mhm.
There was no actual feeling left because it was all padded by this experience of watching the TV.
That's a good word.
And I thought, isn't that interesting? That when you have the gap without all the spectacle, that's when these inconvenient thoughts and feelings come up.
Interesting. You're absolutely right. It gets padded, right? Because let's say we had a conversation about what we really, really, really want in life. And I sat here and I thought, you know what, I do want more keynotes, sure. But I also, I'm fascinated by coins, rare coins. And I love rare coins. I write for 4 different coin magazines, something people don't know about me, and sit on the board of 2 coin organizations. I'm always talking about coins. So I would love to be doing more with coins. And I'm always thinking, how can I do that? Okay. If I sat in the uncomfortable feeling that I would like to do more with coins today, and I don't know exactly what to do, I might end up feeling unsure of myself because I'm not actively doing in this moment the things that I might need to do in order to live a life more filled with coins. So, to use your brilliantly selected word, the padding fills those spaces, right? That gap within me, that empty space, could very easily be filled by my phone and staring at the doom scrolling and going through it and seeing what everybody else is doing. Again, the spectacle, it fills those spaces where I feel like, oh, okay, I've engaged with the world today. I've done enough. No, I haven't. I physically raised my arm with a device in my hand and turned my head and looked at it. It's bizarre the way that it pads us. And I think that sitting in that uncomfortable space is important. I mean, there's a chapter in my book called Leap into the Dark to Embrace the Possibility of Success. And the idea is that we fear success because where will success lead us? If we achieve the thing we want, where are we then? We are in a place of, wow, this is a new zone of success. Now what do I do? And we sometimes fear that because we want the stability of what's normalized around us, not what's unsure and new. So we don't pursue the things that we want to do. Again, I wrote my book as a series of reminders to myself to not do that, right? So the padding is a really interesting idea because sitting in that uncomfortable space of what do I want? What am I really after? Valuable. I like the idea of padding, and I'll definitely take that with me after we're done speaking today.
I think I will use it more as well. It's the first time I've used that word for it, actually. I think it is important. And of course, the fact that we've got so much what you call spectacle available to us now must be an expression or manifestation of something. It didn't just happen by magic. I wonder if we collectively are more trying to numb ourselves out, perhaps.
Well, I'll tell you that, and I've spoken to this before, but I'm happy to share it, that Otto Rank, who is an Austrian psychoanalyst, was writing to his friend in the early 1900s, his friend Jessie Taft. He wrote her a letter and said that he was thinking about stopping writing books because, as he said, the world suffered from an overabundance of truth, the enormity of which could not possibly be consumed. And he didn't feel it necessary to add to that enormity with more books. He didn't want to add more books to the world. So he's writing, let's just say in the 1930s. I can't remember specifically when he wrote that letter, but I think it might have been 1933. He was talking about books, meaning there were too many books in the world. He didn't want to add to the chatter by adding another book. Think about that for a moment. I don't mean you think about that. Let us all think about that for a moment. There were too many books and therefore too much chatter in the world. What would Otto Rank say about TikTok? What would he say about Instagram Reels and stories? What would he say about Facebook? What would he say about Twitter X? What would he say about podcasts? He would lose his mind at how much chatter and information there is in the world, some of which is valuable. I'd like to believe our conversation is. But to those who have no idea what this conversation is and are not actively listening to it, it's literally just another piece of content in the world that they will find, scroll past, be confused by, or engage with. We are creating so much content for so many different reasons, and sometimes to our detriment because it's just volume of content. And also the intentionality behind it sometimes is it's meant to sell us things, right? But that gets overwhelming. But I think it's important to navigate through all that and find content that is either valuable, truly valuable to us, or just shut it off for a little while. Like if somebody was to write me and say, you know what, I listened to the first 10 minutes of your conversation today, and then I stopped because I went out in the world and I smelled a flower and I, fell in love and I, got the dog I always wanted. I'd say, hallelujah, that's a fantastic result of this conversation. And the other 40 minutes were also good, but don't even worry about it.
You can listen to the other 40 minutes when you're out walking the dog with your beloved.
That's exactly right.
You're on sort of headphones where you've got one, you've got the thing. Yeah.
With only one ear so that the other is actually listening to life as it happens. But
excellent. Yes, exactly. Best of both worlds. I love that. There was something else that you mentioned when we met before, Greg. This whole thing around your drive to share understanding with people, and this is something that really motivates you. And I wonder if you would like to share something about that, about what that means to you and the role that has in your life.
Yeah, and I can't remember specifically what I said. So as I answer, if there's something that you took a note on, please feel free to direct me. But I think that, we're all certainly works under construction. And I know that I am, no matter what age I hit, right? I remember, being 35 and thinking to myself, okay, this has got to be it, right? Like I've learned all the things there is to learn. And then, at 40, I was like, wait, there's more? This is weird. Wait, at 45, you get the point. I think we're all working on ourselves. And I think that some of the things that I've learned and read, because I spent a lot of time learning and reading, might be of value to other people. And you know what? Sometimes I share the thoughts that are floating around inside my skull, and people say, yeah, I disagree. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me. I'm like, great. Tell me what does. Let me learn more. I have studied and been fascinated by the work of a cultural anthropologist named Ernest Becker for many years. And I'm writing his biography currently. And Becker, who died in the early 70s, explored a lot of huge ideas. Let's just say it that way. What's the significance of our mortality, and how does the psychology of our mortality influence us? And what's the role of our self-esteem, and where do we find meaning, and where do we find our value in the world? Those sorts of things. And he was just touching on those throughout these many books that he wrote. The point is that Becker, who won a Pulitzer Prize, was often trying to figure out who he was and trying to figure out what he was doing, even as he was writing books that won a Pulitzer Prize, right? I think that's fascinating. I think it's fascinating that even the person who won the Pulitzer Prize was sitting around thinking, am I doing this right? Like, is this the right thing that I need to be doing? So I think that all of us could learn from other people. And Becker, too, interestingly, always asked people when he met them, tell me what you're reading. And then he would go read those books. Even as he was writing a Pulitzer Prize winning book, he was still asking college students and people in coffee shops, oh, hi, nice to meet you. What are you reading? And then trying to learn from those people. So for me, the sharing of ideas is directly connected to how much more there is to learn and how much more I can glean from conversations like this one, even as I'm sharing things that I think, feel like, and seem to be true. So I'm not sure if that's what I spoke
I
about.
love it. Yes. I mean, my sense of what you were talking about was very much what you've just shared there, which is this whole business of that as you share your understanding, you understand more deeply. And when you understand more deeply, you can then share more. And then, it's like an organic process rather than a stage one, learn everything, understand it all. Stage two, tell everyone about it. It's like a continuous, organic, flowing thing.
That's right.
And it's interesting that your Pulitzer Prize winner is so diligently learning and sharing as they go. Maybe there's a clue in that for us, you think?
Absolutely I do. I'm nodding with truth. I could have sat there for 5 minutes just nodding. Yes, yes, absolutely. When I was writing my book, um, I made sure to say, I'm not a guru. Don't take every word of this as truth. I'm offering lessons that I remind myself of. This is essentially a book for me, and you're along for the ride because you happen to pick it up and you're holding it in your hands. The book is called Reclaim the Moment: 7 Strategies to Build a Better Now. How can we strip away the clutter of the world and focus on this moment and therefore create possibilities? And the book offers 7 strategies. The point is, those are 7 strategies I need. They're ones that I need because every single human being is an insecure, frightened, terrified creature hurtling towards an uncertain end, causing harm along the way. That's what we do. And we are also confident, hopeful, loving, inspired. We cause kindness along the way. And in this convoluted maelstrom of being a human, hopefully we do things that are great and wonderful and leave the world better than we found it in ways that don't infringe on other people's right and ability to do the same. Well, we fail at that all the time. In moments and in days, we do. We hurt people. We do it inadvertently. Sometimes we do it on purpose, which is horrifying, but we can always do better. So my book is a list of reminders to self to do better and to continually focus amidst a world of distractions. All of that to say, yeah, I think through conversations, we could always be learning more. I think through connection, we could always be learning more. And if we don't do what I did at 35, which is think, cool, I'm done. I've learned all the things. I'm joking. I don't think I ever actually said that to myself, but I kind of felt that at times. Like, wait, there's more years? I mean, these years that you get are a blessing and a gift. And I think that ultimately at the end of the day, we need to remember that and then fill them with as much connection as possible so that we can learn and do, quote unquote, better.
Reminds me, I was at a party once, and someone came up who was pontificating and telling everyone about this amazing thing he'd done. It was a thing called headlessness, which you may have heard of. Headlessness. It's fascinating work. And he was really excited about this and just telling us we all needed to get into it and how fantastic it was. And we all listened for a while. And then someone said, have you just become enlightened for the first time? And we were like, yeah, I've been enlightened like 10, 12 times. And I've probably got another 50 or 60 left to go. And then I still won't be enlightened. That when you first enlightened, you think that's it. So I can resonate with the 35-year-old thing. I was like that at 17, let alone 30, which is worse and more annoying.
Well, it's funny. I remember being in India. This is probably 30 years ago now. I was in India, and that could be an entire podcast of stories. But I ended up in the northern part of India in McLeodganj, which at the time was where the Tibetan government in exile was living, and I think they still are. And the Dalai Lama was there, and I ended up meeting the Dalai Lama, which was an incredible experience. And just being able to shake his hand, and it was that's a whole story. Um, Point being, I remembered thinking, what is enlightenment and what does that mean? And how do I achieve enlightenment? And, meeting and seeing the Dalai Lama and shaking his hand and seeing this person who essentially was glowing with energy. I thought, how could I achieve that? Not realizing that it's not a thing that happens, but rather a continual series of things that one experiences that feels that way. When I mentioned Ernest Becker's work, when I first read Ernest Becker's work, I felt that enlightenment sense, meaning I thought, oh, I've happened upon something that seems true to me. That's interesting. And it was like, now I can reframe the way I think. Well, then I read this, and then I saw that, and then I experienced this. And each one of those things was another stage of enlightenment, I guess you'd say. And as you brilliantly said, at the end of it all, I hope that we're 115 years old and we're surrounded by loved ones and laying there thinking to ourselves, wow, there's still more to learn. I mean, that's beautifully tragic, right? But tragically beautiful at the same time. So,
Exactly right. Yes, exactly right. I love that. So you've got this beautiful facility, Greg, for rolling from one idea to the next, whilst allowing me to join in and play with you as well. Some people have got that lovely capacity, but you can't get in to actually say anything. Right. So you've got this sort of two-way, lovely rolling way of playing with ideas. Have you always had that? I mean, do you have any idea where that came from for you?
well, I'm not exactly sure. I think that one thing that I've definitely been working on in the past bunch of decades is being sure that I let other people speak too, right? As someone who's inclined to speak, which, yes, I've always had, that's genetic. I mean, my mom, as she was a semi-professional speaker for a while and was always a communicator, and still to this day is a communicator. I think that as somebody inclined to speak, we often forget to listen. And I go to these speaker conventions where there's lots of type A energy, level 11 speaker energy, and there's reminders throughout to remember to listen. I'll just say it that way. So I think that listening is important, but not just hearing other people talk, but rather listening. Like earlier today, it would have been very easy to have either one of us interrupt the other. But by sitting and listening, I caught that word padding that you used. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a moment of enlightenment. It's all padding. I'm padding these empty spaces. I never would have heard that had I just been talking and not receptive to new ideas. So that's another continual work, is learning to listen and learning to hear and creating space so that it's not just my voice filling the room.
Beautiful. So you naturally had in your background this kind of capacity for speaking and communicating and rolling with ideas,
Yeah.
which is astonishing. I bet a lot of people would, cut their arm off for that, because so you don't know what it's like to be somebody who can't do that and then discovers how to.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's definitely been part of my life from the beginning, and I'll share a quick story in that my mom, who was speaking, as I said, semi-professionally for years, not just as a teacher, but she would actually do speaking engagements. Her topic was exercising as we age, and as she closed in on 70 and 75 years old and whatnot, she was still doing these presentations, and I had never seen her speak ever. I just knew that she did this thing, but I'd never seen her speak. And it was probably about 15 years ago, maybe. I was on the East Coast of the United States, and I was letting my parents know that I was going to come visit them. And my mom said, "Oh, that's great. I have a speaking engagement, And I said, "Oh, I'd love to see it. Let me come to the speaking engagement." And she said, "Well, it's sold out, but I can get you in." I'm like, "It's sold out? What are you even talking about?" So to make a long story short, my mom was speaking in a hospital. There was a room, it held 200 people, and they had sold tickets for, let's just say, $2 each. And it was sold out. And all the money went to the hospital and whatnot. But, my mom was doing it out of love for connection and offering something of value. I thought, this is incredible. I walk in, the room is packed. with people to hear my mother. And she's walking around, and I can't convert to meters. She's not a woman of tall stature. She's adorable and just walking around and waving at her friends and, doing her thing. And they introduce her. She walks up to the podium, still waving at her friends and being cute and adorable. And the second they said, "Please welcome Diane Bennick," and the applause ended, she looked at the audience with this unbridled intensity. And her opening line, "If you don't exercise as you age, they will read about you in the paper after you are found at the bottom of the stairs having fallen down." And she's like going completely intense on this audience of, I need to say, senior citizens, largely senior citizens in the audience. She basically tells them, exercise or you're going to fall down the stairs and they're going to read about you in the newspaper. That's her opening line, and proceeds for 90 minutes to deliver one of the most powerful presentations I've seen. And she gets done and then just goes back to waving at her friends and being cute and adorable, And I thought, oh my gosh, no wonder like my entire life has been me trying to figure out how to communicate with passion and intensity. Like it's like my fantastic mom. It's genetic. That's when I understood for the first time. I mean, people were asking her to basically sign autographs. It was amazing. So that's where it comes from. All credit where credit is due. I could sit here and talk about myself as a thought leader and whatnot and all these different things. Shout out to Diane, my mom. She's amazing.
How incredible. I love the bit where you said, "You're sold out." What on earth do you mean? Because we assume that our people are just normal people, don't we? We assume they're not incredible.
That's right. And I'm the speaker, right? Because I have the website. She doesn't have a website. I've got the promo video. She doesn't have a promo video. What are you talking about? She's sold out. My presentations aren't sold out. Hers are sold out. Yes, they were. And I happened to get in because I knew the speaker, right? Good for me.
That's fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. And it speaks to something interesting, which is that she is communicating not to get another keynote presentation. She's communicating not to promote herself or a brand, right? She doesn't have a book that she was promoting. She was communicating out of love for the audience. And a mentor and friend of mine, a guy named John Wilson, who is the genius that no one has ever heard of, lives near Seattle, Washington, where I live, once told me, he was my theater history and performance theory professor in college, said that the deepest part of the performer's bow comes at the height of the applause after the performance. And he meant that at the height of the applause, at the moment of most volume of applause, that is the deepest that the presenter bows, because it is in that moment that the deepest reverence for the audience needs to be felt, not the most inflated heights of ego because the applause is for me. It is a moment of gratitude and it is a moment of respect. And my mother really carried that. She was there not for herself, but for the audience. And I think that whenever we are speaking, and this is just something that I think I need to always remember, and especially as someone who is often on stage, we are there for the benefit of the audience, the listener. We are not there for the benefit of ourselves. And the more I remember that, the better my life is.
I 100% agree. I run workshops, and I have this little reminder I give myself, which is I can't make them experience anything in particular. I can't make them do anything in particular. I'm in service to be there while they have the experience they want to have. And then I feel, then I'm okay. Then there's nothing to worry about because I'm aligned with the actual truth of being there. And that's very, very powerful. And that also means you can carry on doing it, doesn't it? Like you're keeping doing it and you love it. So
because you love it. Exactly. Because you love it and you love the audience. There's a sign, it's over there. I can't, show you, but it says preparation rehearsal only prepares you for the initial moment, never generalize. It's on the door leaving my studio. And what it means that preparation rehearsal only prepares you for the initial moment is all the preparation you do, all the readying you do only prepares you for hello. And after that, game on. whatever the audience brings, whatever you have decided to bring to the audience, throw it out the window. Like, keep it and use it as a framework, but be in the moment with the audience. Even if your presentation, even if the thing you do for work is line by line written and memorized, still in the moment, whatever it might be, in the midst of what you do, make it connected, make it authentic, make it down to earth, make it spectacle free. Just be present, be authentic in the moment. It's a reminder to myself not to get out on stage and deliver the presentation this time that I gave last week, or to say the thing that I always say because I always say it. Yeah, say it again, but bring life to it and light in the moment. Make the words, real. I mean, Shakespeare says it in his notes to the actors when he says, you know, uh, you know, speak the speech as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue, nor saw the air too much with your hand. I mean, basically, he's giving instructions to actors, and he says, and I'm misquoting, right? But the point is, Shakespeare is saying to actors, do not make your emotions unnecessary. Suit the action to the word and the word to the action. He's saying, be in the moment, be present. Have the words you say be authentic. Have the actions you participate in with your hands and your gestures for actors be genuine and authentic. And I think that message is true. I think as we go through our lives, whether people are listening to this while driving to work or sitting with their partner or whatever it might be, make your actions and your words authentic and present and real and genuine. And I think all our lives will be better for it.
Beautiful. I love it. Do you actually teach other people to make presentations or keynote speeches?
Yeah, I do, and there's a professional side to that, but I'll answer from the perspective of my coaching for TEDx. I'm a speaker coach for TEDx Perth, Australia, and as part of the coaching team for TEDx Perth, I work with the speakers who deliver TEDx presentations. So I very much enjoy that because those are pretty critical moments in career making and breaking sometimes for people. I think it's really important in those moments to do the very best we can and to be as authentic as we can, because TEDx and TED viewers want that. So in working with speakers, always trying to figure out what's the core of the presentation, what's the germ, the nucleus of it, and then build from there, rather than what happens sometimes is speakers will come in and say, I want to say this, this, done. It's like, okay, what more is there? And what less is there? And what can we give to the audience? And how can we do that in 17 minutes with as few words as possible and the most possible impact? So yes, I do work with speakers and in TEDx and beyond, and professionally as well, for sure. People who are giving presentations, people like, of course, your CEOs and people like that, but also, lawyers who don't get into practicing the law because they love giving speeches. They just have to do that in order to practice the law sometimes. So yeah, all sorts of people come to me with questions like that.
Well, it would be a bit of a crime if you weren't teaching people, given your connection to it.
I appreciate that.
Would you like to say something about bringing teams together by reminding them that they matter and that the work they do is meaningful?
Sure. I mean, that's a distillation of an idea that, again, where credit is due. I mean, Ernest Becker and the work that he did in his books was always inspiring to me, because I think that one core message throughout was the idea that we need to feel as though we are significant or that we matter in the world. I mean, that's an essential part of self-esteem, that we feel as though we're significant and our contribution to the world is meaningful to other people and to ourselves. So when I work with groups, whether that's a corporate group or an association, a main part of what I do is reminding them that the specific work they do matters. And that's not just me saying, the work you do matters. It's me taking the time to learn about what they do and determine why it matters and reflect that back to them through interviews that I do with their people, that kind of thing, right? So that when I'm reminding them of the work mattering, I mean it sincerely and they hear it authentically. They're not just like, oh, he must say that to every group. No, I'm here today specifically speaking about life insurance and why it matters and tying it in. And I think it's important to remind people of that, because we end up sometimes in homogenized groups, teams of humans who are working together. And I'm saying that for people listening in air quotes, if you're not watching. They're working together, but are they really working towards something? Do they really feel a connection with somebody else. This would be a very different experience as a podcast if we were just literally talking and you had a list of questions in advance and I was answering things that everyone else has asked rather than genuinely connecting with you. I can't wait to share this episode because I feel like we're creating something significant.
Yeah.
Well, when teams do that, you get more accomplished. You create more possibilities. So it's all about creating possibilities and being consistent with our focus on one another, on ourselves, and remembering that what we're doing is significant and meaningful. I think it's really important.
Amazing. Well, that weaves together some of the themes you spoke about across the conversation, doesn't it? The whole thing about you're going in and learning about what they're doing and getting a proper understanding of it that you can then present back to them. And you're bringing them into the moment because they've forgotten their choice to go and do that job. They've forgotten why, probably, that was a meaningful idea at the time. They're just still
true, right?
going through the motions of it. But you're right. I mean, if they're doing it, someone's paying them to do it, there's going to be a reason for that. There's going to be a meaning to that. There's going to be a value to that.
And it's also true that sometimes people are paying somebody to do something because they're asking those people to trade the minutes and hours of their lives for money so that a task gets accomplished. That doesn't have any necessary connection to meaning or significance or a value beyond the value of the work product or the value of the hours given in exchange for money towards the employer's end. Well, that's true. I mean, people have been talking about that for the last 140 years, right? What that signifies to human beings. That said, we can do better. We can often do better. And again, my book, my work, my speeches about creating possibility and us doing better, we can do better. So if somebody is, as many of us are, trading our hours and days of our lives in exchange for the funds that we need to live, bizarre concept for another time, another conversation for another time. If we're doing that, let's have the work we do be meaningful. Let's have the outcome of that be self-esteem enhancing rather than diminishing. And let's have the teams that we're involved in those situations be uplifting, nurturing, and more productive, not just creating more things, but more productive in terms of what we're bringing to ourselves and to one another and to the world. I think that we can enhance our lives through work and not just be diminished by it or made anonymous by it, if that makes sense. So that's what I like to do. Yeah, that's what I like to do with audiences, is remind them of their significance and that the work they're doing is profoundly important or interesting or meaningful or fascinating, and uplift one another as a result.
Beautiful. Well, I love what you're doing, Greg, and I love the energy and the presence you're bringing to it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm very glad that you are also teaching other people. And who knows what other requests you may get across the years from people to, because presumably eventually there'll come a point where you think, actually, I'm fed up with standing up doing presentations, but maybe there's someone who inspires me who I'm excited to help them to do it. So that kind of thing. So I could talk to you for hours, honestly, I really could. But we do have a time limit. So if we just take our attention to the wider world, right, with everyone, as you say, we're all trying to learn, we're all causing mayhem, and we're also causing marvelousness as we go from the beginning to the end. And there are a lot of people out there who are trying to be examples, leaders, supporters, nurturers, etc., etc. Some of those people are listening to this conversation. Is there something you would like to say to those people who have that particular intention and context in their lives of actually being helpful to others in that sense?
I love it. And absolutely, I would say believe in the possibility of kindness. It's the first chapter of my book, but it's something I genuinely believe in more and more and more as the years go on, as the world becomes more chaotic. Believe in the possibility of kindness. The spectacle will unintentionally or intentionally pull us away from the fact that kindness is a possibility. And while we are all unkind, and I at times have been unkind, we can always do better. We can always be more kind. We can believe in the possibility of kindness even as the world encroaches on us and our minds swim around chaotically. We can always believe in the possibility that we're able to be kind to other people, that it's possible to be kind to other people and have conversations develop as a result. Yes, there will always be roadblocks. There will always be hurdles. There will always be people with whom we cannot connect no matter how hard we've tried so many times. And that's okay, because it's always possible to try again, but also try someone else and try to connect with somebody else. And I think that it's a critical reminder in this world that when we lead with that, we create possibilities for connection, and those connections create possibilities for us and other people. But I truly believe that believing in the possibility of kindness is a core idea that I need to keep in mind, and that we all might do well to keep in mind.
Amazing. And people can read all about it in the first chapter of your book. I will put a link to your book in the show notes as well, Greg, so that people can get to go and check it out. So we've talked about a lot today, which has been absolutely fascinating. I feel like we've been talking for hours, actually, because it's gone into so many different avenues, right? Has there been a favorite part of the conversation for you today?
Well, just connecting with you has been wonderful. And I mean that sincerely. When we had, viewers, listeners don't know that we have a pre-call where we get to know one another and see if we're even a match. And from the first few seconds of that, I felt, and you felt, that we were a match. And indeed, in this conversation, we have been. And it's been really, really, really nice. And I like the fact that very early on, your mention of padding is something that I'll take with me and ask myself, is this padding? Again, to use the workout analogy, when you're trying to get in shape, every choice you make to have the salad rather than the candy bar is one that makes your life better. Well, I'll be walking around thinking, is this padding? Is this making my life better? You know what I mean? Is this really what I need right now? This padding? I love the idea of padding. I'm going to take that with me for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. It's been
Thank you.
such a joy doing this with you today. It's ended my day beautifully. I know for you it's earlier in the day. For me, it's coming to the end of the day. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to put this episode out because I really do think there's so much value in it for people. And everybody really do go and check out Greg's website, which is gregbennick.com. And Bennick is BENNICK.com. And I will put the link to the book in the show notes as well. So thank you so much. And everybody do go and check out the other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. And like I said, do go and check Greg's website and have a fantastic week. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And thank you very much, too.